why do we choose a box squat when we're working with athletes? To start with, it's an excellent exercise for strength development. It's safe for the athlete to use as it looks after their lumbar spine by appointing a given depth to the squat. It makes the athletes robust and resilient to injury due to the exercise's ability to develop the posterior chain, and it allows the athletes to develop strength or high force capabilities while performing the movement. The box squat is quite a technical movement, so in order to teach athletes how to engage their posterior chain to perform the exercise correctly, there's a number of regression exercises we can introduce at early stage to help the athlete familiarize themselves with the movement. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to teach the athletes how to properly engage their posterior chain, sit down on the box, engage their posterior chain to come off the box. So next we're going to ask Alex to perform the box squat. So there's 3 different developmental stages, or at least 2 developmental stages that are unloaded before we get to the 3rd developmental stage, which is a loaded box squat. So the technical model for a box squat is starting with a ground up approach. His feet need to be a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Why? This helps engage the hips once we squat with the feet wide, and it also creates some room at the ball and socket joint in the hip to allow the athlete go to the selected depth. Next, we're going to ask the athlete to angle their feet slightly outwards, as again this will help create some space at the ball and socket joint. And thirdly, we're going to ask the athlete to break with the hip first instead of the knee. So we do not want the knee to track forward at all in this movement, unlike a traditional Olympic style squat where the knee will track out over the toe. For the purpose of this exercise, because it is designed to develop the posterior chain, we're going to ask the athlete to break only from the hip at the first stage of the movement and keep their chest relatively high and sit back on the box. So just sit down on the box, Alex. Good. Good. Okay. When the athlete is sat in the box for developmental stage 1, we get them to sit back. We now ask the athlete to stand up from the box without bringing their chest forward. So stand up, Alex. Good. Okay. What this does is this helps engage the hamstrings and engage the glutes to help the athlete stand up off the box. And remember, this is why we've introduced a box squat to the athletes program, because it helps develop the posterior chain. So one more time, go down and sit on the box. Super. Okay, chest back, and again, without coming forward with the chest, stand up off the box. Super. And you can see the amount of focus and neural control in the posterior chain it takes to actually engage the hamstrings and the glutes to help the athlete off the box. Brilliant. So that's developmental stage 1. Developmental stage 2, okay, is where we're now going to look at the technical model for the upper body. So the technical model for the lower body remains the same, and the technical model for the upper body is that we want to try and achieve a 45-degree angle with the torso, okay, and we want to keep that fixed, and instead of completely deloading on the box at the end, we are now going to do what's a 50-50. So we're going to hug the box, give 50% of the overall load back to the box while maintaining 50% of the load ourselves, and once we've engaged with the box, stand back up. So 4 or 5 nice slow reps. Super. Good. And up. Nice. So what you can see Alex does really well here is he breaks with the hip first, the knee is almost locked, there's very little movement from the knee, which drives all the stress back to the hips, the lumbar spine and the hamstrings of the athlete. It engages the posterior chain, which is so important. To developmental stage 3 is where we take the bar. So let's look at the setup under the bar. So we get the athlete to set up underneath the bar. The hands, okay, depending on the mobility at the shoulder, if the athletes can't achieve a low bar trap position, the athletes can actually move their hands a little bit wider, as it'll create a little bit more space in and around the shoulder. But for this exercise, what's fundamentally important to engage the lumbar spine, the proximal part of the hamstrings and the glutes, is that we the bar sits lower down on the trap, hence the reason why it's called a low trap bar squat. Why do we do this? Because we need to keep the center of gravity with the bar over the midpoint of the body when we're performing the exercise. So Alex has a good setup under the bar, chest nice and high. When you're ready, step up, Alex, and take 2 steps back to set yourself on the box. 1, 2. Good. Okay, super. From here, Alex is going to go through 6 or 7 reps and pay special attention to the way he breaks at the knee, breaks the hip first, and the knee or shin stay perpendicular to the ground as we go through the movement. When you're ready, Alex, perform the movement. Okay. All of the stress is now sent to the lumbar spine, the glutes and the hamstrings, which is really, really important. You've got isometric strength development going on at the lumbar spine here through the movement, and you've got really good engagement of those hamstrings and hips, which is all important muscles for contact sports, field-based sports. Good. For developmental stage 2, which is where we introduce load, we're not going to get the athlete to sit back on the box. The athlete just engages with the box, and weight distribution is about 50-50. What we mean by that is when the athlete engages with the box, 50% of the weight can be given to the box while the athlete maintains the other 50% of the weight. What that does is it keeps the athlete engaged through the movement, but allows the athlete bring their hips and their hamstrings into the movement so that they are again developing their posterior chain, lumbar spine, glutes and hamstrings. So when you're ready, Alex, give us 6 or 7 reps. And again, paying attention to the technical model. Now before you start, Alex, we just want to talk about the bar position here. The bar position is a low bar box squat. That's the name of the exercise, but the bar position is low bar. Why? Because when the athlete breaks with his hips, we need to keep the weight on the bar over the center point of the body. So in order to do that, we need to catch the bar or set the bar up lower down on the traps. So when you're ready, Alex, set yourself up. 2 steps should set you on the box. Okay, from here, again paying attention to the technical model, which is feet shoulder width apart, feet pointed slightly outwards, keeping our shins perpendicular to the floor, which is not breaking from the knee, breaking from the hip first, and maintaining a 45-degree angle with our torso. Perform 5 or 6 reps, Alex. Good. So you can see the way he broke first from the hip, which is great. You can see that 45-degree angle from the spine, which is really important, especially in contact sports. You're developing that isometric strength. You're engaging the hips, engaging the hamstrings, and most importantly, the athlete is safe as he has the box under him to cue him in terms of height. You can develop high force output in terms of the amount of load that can be lifted by the athlete, and most importantly, it keeps the athlete robust and resilient to injury as it trains or brings in the posterior chain into the movement, which is the lower back, the glute and the hamstrings. 1 more rep, Alex. Perfect. Rack the bar.